Welcome to the Voices of the GESDA Summit. And today we welcome Peter Maurer. Hello. You are the recently retired president of the ICRC. You also served as Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs in Switzerland, as well as the ambassador and permanent representative of Switzerland to the United Nations in New York. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with GESDA. Why is GESDA so important?
Well, I have to confess that first and foremost, during my whole career as a Swiss diplomat, I have always taken very seriously the force of science and technology shaping societies. And I think logical, I grew up and I was active as a diplomat in a time where we experienced massive transformation induced and shaped by science and technology. So when I became a diplomat, even a young diplomat, I was fascinated to build bridges between a very traditional profession, which is diplomacy, looking at interests of state, and see how we leverage, how we build bridges, how we shape this future together with science. And throughout my career, I have been particularly sensitive to this relationship. I thought diplomacy had a responsibility to create spaces for science, that science was informing diplomacy and building the evidence base of political decision-making. And therefore, when GESDA came to fruition and came to life, it was kind of really a sort of a peak and logical step of what I have done before. When I was at the United Nations, I was really eager to build those partnerships and relationships with the big Ivy League universities, with the top-notch thinkers, because I thought also that one of the hopes that we can have today is really to inject some evidence, rationality into political decision-making processes.
You are giving a keynote address during the summit. What will be your main messages?
Well, my first message is, of course, that we have come a long way in 2-3 years that GESDA was created and started to work and pilot some of those basic thoughts which came with the creation of GESDA, and I think we have come a long way. And then there are a couple of issues which I would like to offer for future reflection, both on diplomacy and science, in order to see how we can further accelerate and develop, and in which direction to develop GESDA in the future. I give you 1 or 2 examples. I do believe that today diplomacy is still, or comes with a little bit of a conservative image on what diplomacy has to do. Defend the interests of state, work for cooperation between states. But today's world is a multi-stakeholder world in which science, technology, civil society, the economy, the academia at large need to be involved into policy and diplomacy making. And therefore we have to rethink fundamentally, in the context of GESDA also, how we navigate diplomacy in a different understanding than just looking for diplomacy in traditional sense. How can we contribute to a larger effort in society, and how can we contribute through diplomacy to the creation of global public goods? And then on the science side, I think one of the pitfalls, dangers, fears I may articulate is also to say science is, of course, a profession, but it is also something happening everywhere in the society. I thought it was brilliant when somebody at the opening yesterday said that everybody is a scientist. Yes. And so we are navigating still, and we are in the middle of this debate in GESDA. How much will this be an enterprise steered and pushed forward by science as a profession, and how much will it be everybody is a scientist and comes to the table with its wisdom. So it's not only opening GESDA towards civil society, it's also about looking how science can be democratized and how the wisdom of communities, of individuals and societies can be leveraged to find solutions. Solutions are not just something which can be created in an ivory tower and then landed on society. Solutions will emerge from critical dialogue between scientists as professionals and the wisdom that I see and I have seen as president of ICRC in so many places, and the wisdom coming from communities, individuals and societies on how to best cope with some of the intricate problem of today's world.
Unfortunately, this summit is being held in a context, world context, which is very difficult with the war so close to our borders. And technology has really transformed how war is being fought. So how do we frame this, and how can diplomacy and science work together in situations like this?
Well, I have always, when I worked for the ICRC, thought about the evolution of conflict in terms of actors, battlefields, weapons, and strategies. And I think if you look at those elements which make out conflict and you look at today's world, we see some noticeable transformations. Battlefields are not anymore the sea, the land, the air. It's the cyberspace, the space. And as I just learned this morning participating in one of the deep dive discussion, it's also our conscience, because nanoscience allows you today to intervene into in your thoughts. And so you become an operator, and I move to the actors. Then who is an actor in a conflict today? It's not anymore the soldier in uniform with a gun. That's still a reality. But it is also the civilian sitting at his computer, or basically being in this hybrid and in-between world between who is a combatant and who is not. And so we do see indeed a massive transformation. And it is very interesting that you mention Ukraine, because I think it's kind of an emblematic conflict in which everything which conflict can represent in the future is now for the first time coming to surface much more clearer than any time before. The cyberspace, space, and cognitive conflict, the misinformation, disinformation, hate speech, which is contributing to the polarization of the conflict and is driven by the polarization of the conflict in a very dangerous way. It's the weaponization or the digitalization of weapons in the conflict, but also the weaponization of information and data. It's really these complexities which happen in a time where big power competition is the predominant template governing international relations. And I think that's what makes the specificity, the uniqueness, the danger, what makes us discussing these issues all the time, because it is mind-boggling that while for the individual in Mariupol, this looks almost like First World War, what we have seen. While when you look and scratch the surface, this is definitely not anymore First World War, but this is a world at war in a very different way.
Yeah. Mind-boggling, I think, is the right word. Thank you very much, Peter Maurer, for speaking to us today. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for having me.